Excuse me, can I have the key to the washroom?
Yeah, it is. It's on this big ring, and don't try to steal it.
Hey, thank you very much. You've been terrific. Thank you.
Leno, the pelican-faced comedian.
I mean, I'm a stand-up comedian that was fortunate enough to get a TV show, and that worked out well, but I was always a stand-up comedian either on weekends or during the week after the show. I liked anything that rolls, explodes, and makes noise, so...
Imagine watching someone on TV every night and never realizing they were carrying a secret that could rewrite their entire story. That is exactly what Jay Leno did for 30 years. And the reason he kept it hidden is more surprising than anyone ever expected. Open on a midnight highway, the kind that unspools in a silver ribbon between Los Angeles and anywhere else you can make a crowd laugh. The headlights bite the dark. The dashboard throws up a blue glow. A man with a jawline you know, and a suit on a hanger in the back seat leans forward over the wheel. He is not going home. He is going to work again. The television audience has just watched him end a show with a wave. Somewhere, an orchestra played him off. Somewhere else, a camera light died. Out here, the night is just beginning. The double life does not involve scandal or secret families. It involves a choice that is crazier in its simplicity than any tabloid twist. Jay Leno lived on one income and saved the other. Not for a month or a year, but through the height of a career that most people assume fixes everything. He said it so plainly over the years that people mistook it for a bit. From the moment he had two incomes, he banked one and lived on the other. When comedy money was small and car dealership money was decent, he banked the bigger and lived on the smaller. When the comedy money surged and the Tonight Show checks became legend, he banked the television money and lived on the jokes. He spoke to business reporters the way he talks to audiences, with an undercurrent of, "You can do your version of this too." Then he got in his car and did 150-plus weekends a year because the strategy requires fuel. It requires miles. It requires an appetite for boredom that few artists cultivate. It requires a person who can love the grind enough to survive the glow. Picture the daily split that produced the double life. By day, a studio with a staff that depends on the host to deliver comfort and surprise. The monologue pointed toward everybody's living room. The desk with cues, the guests whose stories need a lane and a guardrail. The country expects lightness from you and a little bit of decency in how you carry it. By night, a road act built long before network television called. No hair and makeup, no green room catering, no teleprompter to catch you. A mic with some history, and a club owner at the back counting receipts as if they are heartbeats. The man who smiled through prime time took off the jacket and put on the habit that made him safe. He was a club comic who got a day job, not the other way around. That reversal is how the game is won, if you want to live on your terms. There is another stage where the double life sings. It looked like a concrete floor, a steel door that rolls upward, and a symphony of metal and memory. The garage is a rumor for some celebrities. For Jay, it is a second hometown. He did not buy cars for status. He bought stories with engines that could still turn over and then made them turn like they were new. The show named after that room became a catalog of American eccentricity. Steam cars breathing like dragons. Brass-era ghosts that teach you how a pedal used to talk to a wheel Italian. Curves with temperaments to match. He fell in love with the way engineering has the same beats as a joke. Set up, turn, payoff. He explained the joke of a Wankel rotary engine to people who never thought they would care. Then he went back to the other job and explained the joke of the day to people who never thought they would laugh about it. The money choice created the myth and then explained it. Fans looked at the warehouse of mechanical art and assumed television paid for it. He shook his head. Television bought him insurance. Comedy bought him freedom. On camera, he said it clearly enough to be quotable forever. "I never touched a dime of my Tonight Show money. Ever. He said he kept 2 bank accounts, one for show business and one for the other job, and he only let himself live out of one. The arithmetic is absurd, only if you make it optional. He made it a rule. If you are waiting for a twist, it is that simplicity can be radical. Save one income. Live on the other. Make sure the one you live on comes from work you control. Inside that choice sat a second double that no one recognized until they had to. The man who comforted people at the end of their day had arranged his life to comfort the people who worked for him if his day got cut. When a recession ate budgets and studios wavered, he took a personal pay cut to keep crews intact, the kind of move that is easy to make up stories about later, but difficult to carry. In the moment when accountants and egos crowd a room, he kept the show moving because the show is not the desk. It is a payroll. The double life is that of a performer and a shop foreman who worries about who gets to pay for braces and vacations. If you see the monologue as a machine, you begin to understand why engineers became his friends. If you want to know how a double life actually feels, picture the nights commuting between one set and another stage. The idol of people who believed he glided, sweating through a second hour in some town 100 miles away, because the joke is only alive when it is said out loud to someone who laughs. The nature of this kind of secret is that it is boring. Discipline almost always is. He had no vices worth gossiping about except work and grease. He collected not just cars, but craftsmen, upholsterers, machinists, welders, painters. He talks about them with the affection most hosts reserve for A-list guests. He knows their kids' names. He walks around their benches and watches them work, and then asks why they did it that way. He is generous with credit because he likes knowing how things are made more than he likes being the person who made them. Lift the hood and you will find a third life that looks a little like a bank ledger and a little like a fable. The fable says that if you love something and do it long enough, the world pays you to do it. The ledger says, if you want to keep the thing you love pure, you must strap it to a rule you cannot wriggle out of when you are tired. It is not enough to decide to save. You have to drag a suitcase to an airport when you would rather watch other people work. That is the unphotogenic half of the story. He kept The Tonight Show pristine by doing 150, 160, sometimes more, gigs a year. He refused to put his hand in one pocket, so he had to refill the other until his legs ached. That is not romantic, it is a choice. The cost of living that way shows up in places publicists do not love to mention. You miss dinners. You meet your friends in alleys behind theaters instead of around tables. You get very good at making every hour pull more than its weight. You learn to sleep like a soldier, wherever there is a corner of quiet. You save the glamorous part of your persona for people who need it. And you save the honest part for the mechanics and the club owners and the night sheriffs who wave you past a roadblock because they recognize your headlight pattern. The late-night king wearing a greasy shop shirt at noon is not a disguise. It is the uniform of the other life where he can exhale. Then the fire came and tried to turn double into none. In November 2022, inside that garage, where machines tell their secrets to anyone who listens long enough, gasoline flashed and turned to fire. He was underneath a car, because where else would he be when the world is quiet? The burns took skin across his face, hands, and chest. He was lucky in the sense that only survivors get to endure eyes spared, ears spared, pain with a plan. The burn center became another backstage. Surgeons rebuilt, grafts took, hyperbaric chambers hissed. He cracked jokes because jokes are a bridge he knows how to build from any shore. He thanked nurses with the kind of steady voice that makes everybody else remember to breathe. He left the hospital in 10 days and stepped on a stage 2 weeks later because the other life is a lifeline. you do not let go of even when the water is cold. If you want suspense, put that moment near the garage, up against the old rule about money. He saved every television dollar precisely, so that when a day like that happens, he is not trapped by anything but his desire to return. He tells you the strategy is about sleep. The car fire made the metaphor literal. He could come back on his terms because his life was a system, not a story. People forget that the man who built an empire of classic machinery also built a machine out of his time. The inputs are jokes and respect. The outputs are stability and trust. When one part failed, the rest carried the load. You cannot tell his double life without telling the part about debt, because it is the absence that defines the shape. He tells young comics and old fans the same truth. Stay out of debt if you can. Debt is a story you have to tell yourself every month that turns into a lie when the interest rises. When you avoid it, your other life has air. He puts it in a line so simple it sounds like a punchline. Put your money in a hammock and tell it to relax. Then go to work. The money loves you more when you do not ask it to pay for your pride. That is the backward way to be rich. Make money you do not need to touch, and learn how to be the person who can resist touching it. There is a warmth in the way the shop people talk about him that tells you what the second life taught him about the first. He never asked them to be backup dancers in a celebrity fantasy. He asked them to do what they love so he can share it. The network cares about ratings. The garage cares about whether the engine pulls smoothly at 3,000 RPM under load. Those are different kinds of truth. He built a place to go where the only applause you get is the kind a straight 6 gives you when it finally lights. After a winter, he collected applause on television and started engines in private, and learned to let the second one fix the way the first one made you feel sometimes. The headline you clicked promises scandal. The confession you get is simpler and harder to live. For 30 years, Jay Leno lived like a worker who got a lucky break, not a prince who got a court. He carried 2 lives with 1 pair of hands. He did not become a different person to do it. He became a more extreme version of himself. Daylight on set, brightness that belongs to everybody. Darkness on the road, a beam of headlight that belongs only to the few who paid to sit in that room. A bartender polishing a glass and laughing low because he has heard the punchline before and still likes the way it lands morning at the garage. The smell of oil and hot metal, and the sound of a world that is not impressed but is willing to cooperate if you respect it. What did it hide? It hid the cost and turned the receipts into a rule of thumb people could steal and carry home in their wallets. It hid the stubbornness that keeps you out of trouble long after other people lost their maps. It hid the small decision he made thousands of times to take the late flight, to do the second show, to shake the hand at the end of the autograph line, to put a dollar bill in the back pocket of a mechanic who stayed late so you could make sound with a thing designed for it. It hid the decision to step back in front of people with dressings on his skin and a doctor's voice in his head, because people were waiting, and that has always mattered more to him than the part where people watch. He will tell you the joke has to work anywhere. The money rule has the same physics. It works for couples who choose to live on one income and bank the other. It works for a kid who does 2 part-time jobs and pretends only one exists. It works for a person who decides to treat a raise like a rumor and keep living like the earlier version of themselves. He took the one lever most people have and pulled it all the way. The secret is that you do not have to pull it as hard as he did to learn what he learned. You only have to stop complicating it. Ask any road comic what the second show on a Saturday feels like. They will smile and grimace at the same time. It is a test you take with your whole body. The jokes that landed at 7 glide at 9:30 if you hold your posture and your patience. The good ones tighten by a syllable. The crowd changes shape. The Late Show wants a harder turn and a sharper edge, even from a guy who built a career on making the room feel safe. He delivered that edge without changing who he was, because the craft is not about persona. It is about rhythm and oxygen. He learned to find both in any room because he gave himself no way out. Spend only one income. Keep the other as a promise you do not break. There is no shortcut to make that math kind. The route is through. The myth of late-night television is that it replaces the need to prove yourself. It does not. It multiplies the need and adds cameras. You do the monologue, then the grid of interviews, then the good nights, and the metrics show up in your inbox before you drive home. You could let that define you and sleep like a man who thinks daylight will always say yes. He did not. He chose the opposite. He let other rooms tell him the truth, and he let that truth fund his life. The Tonight Show is a campfire you tend for a country that is too tired to argue. Stand-up is the field where you go test your courage when the sun sets. You cannot fake that. He stopped pretending he wanted to. There is another place he stopped pretending he had to be someone else. The garage is a lie detector. People bring in machines that are older than everyone in the room, and they look to see whether you love things that do not love you back. If you do, the room accepts you. If you do not, the room retreats. The man television made a celebrity become a novice again every time he rolled under a chassis. Not a pretend novice. A student. He learned names the way a mechanic learns torque values. You could see it in the way his voice changed when he introduced the upholsterer who could stitch a seam that would hold for another 50 years. Or the machinist who could turn a bearing nobody else makes anymore. He collected people who knew how to keep time alive, and he made their knowledge into stories the rest of us could understand at our kitchen tables. The cars are a headline that hides a study. He loved odd engines because they are jokes that risk not landing. Steam that hisses like an impatient uncle, turbines that whine like a prayer. Rotary engines that hum in defiance of pistons. He delights in showing you where the punchline is and why the setup matters. It is not about speed in a straight line. It is about the elegance of a solution that does not get you killed. He took that same affection to jokes. A good one is a mechanical object. It must be balanced, it must be assembled cleanly, it must fire when you ask it to. If it stalls, you do not blame the audience. You look for the leak. People who hung around the show long enough noticed a pattern the public missed. When the budget whines got weird and the network started asking questions with edges, he absorbed the first cut himself. A decade ago, when the suits asked for layoffs and the headlines started to leak, he took a pay cut and a PR slap to keep the crew he loved at work while the machine rebalanced. He walked back into the writer's room after the meeting and turned the moment into a joke. Because a joke makes a tightrope into a line you can walk without staring down. It was never only about the spotlight. It was about the people who plug in the spotlight and the families who depend on their planning. For a few months in 2009 and 2010, his double life looked public in a different way. Primetime experiments. A time slot walk that turned into a shuffle back. A story told so often that you can recite it without thinking. The network, the rival, the late-night saga. We do not need to retell it here. The larger truth is that he never stopped following his rule through it. He showed up, did the show he was asked to do, then drove to the club and did the show he chose. His thick skin and his thin sleep carried him through the months where gossip took a swing at his name. He let the road fix the bruise. Audiences that pay cash care less about trades and more about jokes. He cares less about which story gets told in a book, and more about whether he tried to be decent in rooms without cameras. A double life is expensive in energy, so he did what engineers do when they want a machine to last. He removed the load where he could. No drinking, no drugs, no gambling. He ate at places that know your name, not places that know your publicist. He bought denim that could survive time and oil stains. He drove himself because cars feel like freedom when you do not need escorts. He signed every autograph in the line after a show because attention is the only tax that pays you back when you return it with interest. He made mornings about work and afternoons about learning and nights about laughter. There is no glamour in this schedule. There is a life. In November 2022, that life burned and tried to blink out. Gasoline does not care about your reputation. It cares about chemistry. A spark found a path, and in a rush of heat and noise, he found himself on the wrong end of a law nobody can negotiate with. The burns were real and mean. Face, hands, chest, the kind that makes a mirror into a dare. A friend pulled him away from the flame, and Burbank firefighters put their hands on him like professionals who love saving more than they love applause. He disappeared into a burn unit where time was measured in cubic centimeters of graft and the rhythm of a hyperbaric chamber. He came back out with a joke because jokes are the currency he likes to pay with, and because the nurses deserved a headline of their own, and because he wanted his wife and his friends to breathe. He went back on stage because two lives do not cancel each other. They support each other when one is on a gurney. That would have been enough danger for a decade. A few months later, he rolled a motorcycle out for a test ride. A wire across a lot grabbed him. He hit the ground. Bones obey physics the way gasoline obeys chemistry. A collarbone cracked. Ribs complained. Kneecaps did what knees do when the world shifts without warning. Another story that could have ended with a once. He turned it into a reminder that the only way to make danger worth it is to treat caution like a craft. He got back up because sitting still is not enough sleep for a man like that. He does not get taller from being knocked down. He gets steadier. The secret of his double life is that the secret was always in plain sight, hiding behind a number that high achievers hate to talk about. He is good at being boring. He is good at doing something many times without making a mess. The Tonight Show monologue must arrive daily exactly the way an engine must fire. He made that fact his friend. He recited new jokes to rooms that did not need them yet until the jokes learned how to walk on their own. He tuned carburetors until they were not temperamental anymore. He aligned forks until the wobble was honest and not lazy. Those habits look like hobbies and jobs from the outside. From the inside, they are the same act. Pay attention, be patient, respect materials, honor people. Talk to the people who worked with him, and a sentence keeps appearing. He shows up. 17 letters that explain a career. Now he kills. Now he dazzles. He shows up. For the table read. For the union meeting, where somebody needs a host who cares enough to keep it quiet afterward. For the guy in the shop who is 2 months behind because his mother got sick, and who needs work, not pity. For the teenager in the front row who laughed at the wrong place because he is learning how to be in a room. And you can either shame him or teach him by example. He chose the latter. He was not perfect, he was present. The finance rule that made headlines is less about dollars than about dignity. He could look into a camera and tell you the truth without flinching because he was not spending money that stole tomorrow from himself or from anyone else. That is why the rule is bigger than comedy. Couples use their version of it when they decide to live on one income and save the other. Freelancers use it when they pretend they do not have a second check coming and plan like the first is everything. People who do not earn celebrity money can still test themselves against the same meter. If you cannot leave the second bank account alone, take the second job out of your schedule. Then you will know whether you could have stood up to a fire, a motorcycle accident, a media storm, and a year where everything you built tries to see if you mean it. Some stories about him are soft, because they are minor and tell the truth anyway. He tips mechanics who do not expect it. He follows up with audience members who tell him a story that sticks. He returns calls to local reporters because he understands what being decent looks like in neighborhoods. He buys lunch for a crew because a day is easier when the meal is not an issue. He stands outside after shows until the phone camera line disappears, because it is the right thing to do. If your face is the reason a room is full. He monetized none of these things. He just did them. Marriage made its own quiet circle around the double life. Mavis and Jay met when they were both younger than their jokes. They built a home without children by choice. She committed to causes that mattered long after cameras left. The work on behalf of women whose rights could vanish with a change of regime or a season of neglect is not a TV-friendly segment. It is a life-friendly decision. He supported that, not with speeches, but with predictability. People who choose to fight hard problems need partners who can keep the lights on and the calendar steady. He did that by living on the road and saving the other money. It is an unromantic version of romance. It also works. There was a time when the garage was a set as well as a sanctuary. The show named after that room ran for years and made people care about bumpers and bezels and the way a carburetor sounds when it gets a little respect. It ended when a network decided to turn the page. He did not. He still brings cameras into the room sometimes because teaching is a habit he did not want to drop. He still walks around with a rag in his hand and points to things that most of us would walk past and says, "Look, the show was a convenience." The passion does not require a schedule. If you are looking for evidence that the double life lasted 3 decades and then some, look at how he re-entered public life after both accidents. He did not show you a press conference. He showed you a set. Comedy is the language he speaks when he wants to tell you that fear will not keep him. Machines are the language he speaks when he wants to tell himself that the world makes sense when you turn a bolt and adjust a linkage. He combined both and returned. This is not bravado, it is literacy. For younger comics and anyone who wants to build something that does not break when the weather gets rude, his template is not secretive or extraordinary. It is a list written on a napkin. Keep 2 streams if you can. Live on one. Leave the other alone. If you cannot leave it alone, you have learned where to work first. Keep 2 crafts if you love them. One that feeds the world. One that feeds you. Let them borrow from each other. Let them rescue each other in emergencies. Travel when you are tired. Say yes to rooms that need you. The thrill you protect today pays you in forgiveness when you falter tomorrow. Pay people before you pay yourself if a decision keeps families whole. You will sleep better, which is another way of saying you will think better, which is how you will make more. Learn how things work, the joke, the engine, the show. Ignorance is expensive. Curiosity is a discount that never expires. None of this requires fame. It requires stubbornness and a modest appetite for discomfort. He has both. He keeps them in a pocket with a car key that belongs to something older than your grandparents. If you heard him talk about debt, you know the joke he likes to make is not a joke. He says debt makes you a storyteller who is always a beat behind. You invent reasons why it is fine this month, and better next month, and necessary the month after. He prefers to tell stories in rooms with people who bought tickets on purpose. He kept the 2 lives separate so neither would borrow in a way that made them resent each other. The show never paid for the cars. The cars never paid for the show. The road paid for the life. The saved money paid for his quiet. At the end of the double life, he did not pivot to a third persona. He returned to the same 3 places because they never stopped being his A stage, where the lights warm up like sunrise. A garage where metal remembers. a dining room where he and Mavis sit with friends who talk about real things without shouting. He tells stories about the time a steam car shot fire, and about the time a joke saved a room that wanted to be angry, and about the time a company tried to forget its crew, and how he reminded it that success is a neighborhood, not a house. There is an image you deserve to keep because it explains everything. The Tonight Show curtain is a color your memory can still name. He steps through it, delivers his talk, laughs like a man who knows how to make 1 million people relax, and then he waves and the band plays. Cut to the parking lot behind the club 3 hours away. A door light glows. A bartender hauls a bag of trash that smells like slop and cigarettes. A comic you recognize steps through a hallway that smells like carpet cleaner and old beer. He nods at the door guy, the sound guy, the 3 waitresses who run the whole night, and the owner counting the drawer. He picks up a microphone. He starts to work. This is not a downgrade. It is the other job that funded the grace you saw earlier. And in the garage with the door open in the late afternoon. He is under a car older than war. He slides out on a creeper, wipes his hands, and stands grease on the sleeve. Eyes bright. He is about to tell you why a lever sits where it does, and how someone 100 years ago tried to solve a problem you did not know existed. He is about to teach you why a joke works the same way. He is about to show you that a double life is not a lie. It is a way to be whole when one version of yourself is not enough to carry everything you love. The headline said, "No one knew." The truth is, everyone saw it. We just did not slow down enough to understand it. He told us in plain English, for 30 years, save 1 check. Earn the other in rooms that keep you honest. Be generous with people. Be ferocious with your craft. Go to bed tired because you chose worthy work. Wake up ready to do it again. That is the double life. That is the secret. That is the story. If this video reveals something special, like and subscribe, share it with a friend who loves comedy or cars, and comment on your favorite Jay Leno lesson. I will feature the best in our next video.